My name is Tori Baxter. I am a retired sex worker turned author. My history of sex work started with sugar dating. It wasn't as lucrative as I had imagined. I then also discovered that due to my height, being 6'4", lots of men wanted or started to request me to stand on them or wrestle them, and so I progressed into the BDSM world. And then in 2021 I needed to make cash. I thought to myself, surely working in a brothel wouldn't be that different to sugar dating or BDSM work. I was wrong. My history of addiction stems from a life I lived many moons ago in my 20s when I was working as a bouncer. I really loved speed and pills and coke and weed. I've been clean for around 18 years. I was first on scene to a fatal car accident with a 2-year-old stuck in the back. And at the time I had a 2-year-old. And after we left that car accident, we went to my dealer's sister's house, and she lived in a little shack in the back of someone's property, and she was in her 40s, and I remember sitting there thinking, I do not want this life. And I pretty much quit almost there and then. My story with neurodivergency is that in school I was labelled as dumb and lazy. I could never complete homework. I always forgot my books. I didn't understand what was happening in the classroom. I often just doodled, drew pictures all day. I actually don't recall one time in my entire life that I ever handed in homework because I would lose it. And I was just labelled as the dumb dyslexic kid, and that was it. And it wasn't until probably my 30s that a friend of mine actually got a master's in psychology, and she said, yeah, you are the industry standard of ADHD without a doubt. And then I asked my doctor about it, and he also pointed out, I thought we thought we all knew that. And I didn't. I just thought I was a quirky human. Turns out, my messiness and my forgetfulness and my impulsivity was all related to my ADHD. That I just thought I had this brain that just fired off ideas all the time and just couldn't concentrate on anything. I got bored easily, but turns out I was neurodivergent. Because I know my book is going to be quite controversial, it's going to have 50% of people are going to absolutely love it, relate to it, think it's the best thing they've ever read, and 50% of people are going to think it's the biggest load of shit they've ever read. They're going to look at that and freak out. And I am expecting a lot of online hate, and that's okay, I can take it. So my marketing plan is to go hard and fast like buggery before the launch. And once the launch happens, I'm gone. You're never going to find me again. No, you will find me again. I do have some personal projects I want to work on within the community, in which I'm hoping my book is going to help launch me into those fields. So my marketing plan is I know myself that I have always been, and I always will be, a hustler through and through. You give me a project and I work on that thing like a woman possessed. So, and I've already proved that in the amount of moves I've made prior to my launch. Vinny's addiction wasn't always present. I actually was first in a relationship with Vinny in 2020, and he definitely wasn't into hard drugs back then. We had 3 years of no contact, and when he came back, I saw a lot of changes in him, and at first I didn't quite know why. It'd been a long time of us seeing each other. There were some very obvious physical changes in him. He was a lot skinnier. His eyes had sunken a little bit, but I thought maybe, or at least I hoped, maybe this was just aging. I did start to see some changes in his personality at first, and I think he was masking very well when he first came back. When I did finally discover that unfortunately it was ice, he was very secretive about it. He didn't want to talk about it in depths. He did tell me enough, though, for me to gather that it had at least been minimum of 2 years of heavy drug use. From what I gather from the conversations, I can't be, it might have been a little bit more, it might have been a little bit less. He was very much trying to hide it, and he was very convinced that no one around him knew that he was on drugs. Whereas people, I would say, would question that a lot because of the extreme personality changes that I discovered the longer I started seeing him again. I started writing because I couldn't comprehend what had happened. I could not get my head around it. I kept having flashbacks. I was having flashbacks daily, no, more than daily, multiple times a day. And it was just crippling me beyond words. So I wrote out the most triggering part of everything that had happened. And when I wrote that out and I read it back, I was like, holy shit, this is something. But then I was like, hold on, but it doesn't make much sense because there's things that happened before that and there's things that happened after that. So then I started writing the things either side of that moment. And the more I wrote, the more I was like, this not only was worse than I first thought, because when I wrote it and then I'd read it and I'd be like, wow, that's terrible. And then I just thought, you know what? I have always felt like I have a story in me. There was things that happened prior to that terrible moment that I always wanted to write about. And so it just turned into a book. So I decided to self-publish, and that was because I rang a publisher in Australia, one of the biggest ones, and they said, sorry, submissions are shut, till March. Put it in then, and I thought, well, March is too far away. I need this book out now. And then they said, oh, tell us about your book. So I blah, 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 told them the whole story. And she's like, I need you to send me a copy today. And I was like, oh, is this for March submissions? And she's like, no, I want a copy of this on my desk today so I can show other people in the office. And I got off the phone and I thought, nah, she knows I'm onto something. No one's going to profit from my trauma. So then I just decided, well, I'm going to do it myself and I will profit from my own trauma. So the launch, I wanted to have something meaningful happen, I guess. I didn't want my launch of my book just to be like a selfish, come and look at me in my book, because I don't particularly like that much attention at once, which I know sounds hypocritical because I'm online, but I do understand the power of social media, hence why I post a lot. But I didn't want to just get people to come along just for a book. I know that sounds strange, but I wanted to mean something to people, and I thought, what a better way to do that than to support the organisation that supported me when I was going through things, and I wanted to support other women in domestic violence situations. And that's why I decided to have proceeds go to Berry Street. So towards the very end of my relationship with Vinny, he was getting very erratic. He was very irrational, to the point that he didn't even know he was being irrational. But the things that were coming out of his mouth were starting to scare me. His anger had escalated. The screaming had gone to a point that I couldn't even explain to you how aggressive he was on a day-to-day basis when he talked to me. Screamed at me. When he screamed at me on the day-to-day basis, he'd started doing things that had me concerned. very impulsive aggression, like impulsive aggression that I didn't know if he was going to stab me. That's not to say old him would never touch me, but new him had me that concerned that I thought, is he going to lose the plot one night and come to my house and stab me in my sleep because he's just so irrational and angry right now. And so at the tipping point, I actually didn't want to be in my house. I was scared. I thought, what if he rocks up in the middle of the night? He's broken in before. What's going to stop him from breaking in again and stabbing me half to death because he's so irrational and he could not see past anything other than, it's just scary how they get. So I rang Berry Street. I thought maybe I'll just go away for a night, but I didn't have any money because I wasn't allowed to work. Because it had gotten to that point in our relationship where I couldn't even make money without it turning into a screaming fight, the screaming match, and days on end of drama. And so I didn't want to work because I knew that if I worked, that would cause issues. So yeah, I rang Berry Street just to get away for the night. And they said, we'll put you in a hotel for the weekend. And they sent workers out to come chat to me. And as they talked to me, like, what's been going on? Why haven't you been working? Why is your rent in arrears? Trying to get to the bottom of how they can support me. It was through these conversations where they were like, whether or not you're a sex worker, he knew what you were doing for work when he came back. So it shouldn't have been a thing that he had the right to stop, It's not like we were together and then all of a sudden I was like, by the way, I'm going to go work in a brothel. I was already doing that. So by him putting limitations and rules about when I was allowed to work, how I was allowed to work, how much notice he needed, is he going to, he started saying to me that if I was to go to work, he can't talk to me for 2 days. And so I didn't want that. That was the love of my life. Of course I wanted to talk to him every day. Anyway, so the further we talked about things that were happening, I discovered there was financial abuse, financial control, gaslighting, manipulation. And he'd got me to the point where I was walking on eggshells because, God help me, I might say the wrong thing and set him off on a tirade. So they actually, they put me in a motel. They came and brought us food. They got me some vouchers because I was so far behind in my rent that we were living on 2-minute noodles, and they were so supportive. They'd ring me every day, check in with me. How are you going? Have you heard from me? Do you need any extra support? They really advocated for me when I needed advocating for. So that's why I chose Berry Street.